the inflation story was a little inconvenient for what Morning Joe does literally every morning, Monday through Friday on MSNBC, which is serve as operatives for the Democratic Party. And that would require them to pretend like inflation isn't really that big of a deal. Isn't really happening, shouldn't focus on it at all. But now that the election's over, all is said and done, you know. Did you know that butter's $7? What are they doing? Framing it in gold? This is supposed to be.
In today's video, we're unpacking the Young Turks host Anna Kasparian's fiery takedown of MSNBC's Joe Scarborough. Anna pulls no punches as she calls out Scarborough's delayed acknowledgement of inflation and the soaring costs affecting everyday Americans. Don't miss it.
Butter is $7?
Yeah.
What? Is it framed in gold?
No, Joe, it's not framed in gold. Butter is $7 because it turns out inflation is real. And had he been aware of that, had he actually understood what ordinary Americans were going through, economically speaking, maybe he would be a little more sympathetic toward the electorate in voting against the Biden-Harris, administration in this 2024 presidential election. Let's watch the full clip so you can get a sense of how this interaction went down in context.
You look at those numbers where Donald Trump did better in New York and areas around New York. That probably contributed a good deal to it. I want to talk about economy for a second. A few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, somebody who was going to be voting for Kamala Harris came up to me and said, "Oh my God, Trump's going to win." I go, "Why is that?" He goes, I went to the grocery store.
Joe Scarborough recently expressed surprise over rising prices, specifically highlighting the cost of avocados, a moment that the Young Turks host Anna Kasparian found downright laughable. Kasparian criticized Scarborough's apparent shock, noting that inflation has been a pressing issue for years, with working-class Americans struggling to keep up with the cost of basic necessities. She argued that his reaction underscores a broader disconnect between media elites and the everyday economic realities faced by average voters. Kasparian also pointed out that this gap in awareness likely plays a key role in recent voting shifts, as more people rally behind candidates who speak directly to their financial concerns. Let's dive in.
Joe Scarborough was like, everything we're hearing after the election about inflation. How are you just now finding out about inflation? How? How is that possible? Honestly, I don't think I believe him. I don't believe him. Inflation has been a big topic for a few years now. And he's going to pretend like they didn't know about how serious inflation is until after the election. Is it possible that the inflation story was a little inconvenient for what Morning Joe does literally every morning, Monday through Friday on MSNBC, which is serve as operatives for the Democratic Party? And that would require them to pretend like inflation isn't really that big of a deal. Isn't really happening, shouldn't focus on it at all. But now that the election's over, all is said and done, you know. Did you know that butter's $7? What are they doing? Framing it in gold? This is supposed to be a news show. This is supposed to be a morning news show.
Anna Kasparian contends that Joe Scarborough's approach misleads viewers by minimizing critical economic issues like inflation, issues that significantly influence how people vote.
Every Democrat that we have ever sat down with dinner with over the past 5 years who have kids that go to colleges say their kids are afraid to speak in class because they'll be canceled. It's having an impact from, again, the trans ad to, the athletics. And by the way, as we've said on the show 1,000 times, Democrats should be smarter on the women's athletics thing. 85% of Americans oppose men transitioning after puberty and competing against illegal immigration, the mass border crossings. This isn't just about tax cuts. This isn't just about economics. This is about cultural markers that matter greatly in these people's lives.
I know that Joe Scarborough would like us all to memory hole a rant that he went on recently, a rant that I covered here on this show on a Wednesday by myself. Do you guys remember when Joe Scarborough and everyone else on set were attacking journalists for doing honest reporting about Kamala Harris? And in that reporting, they would talk about her flip-flops, like from, being against oil drilling to all of a sudden being in favor of oil drilling. And Joe Scarborough was like, why are journalists doing objective journalism right now? They shouldn't do that because Trump is a special threat. And so reporters shouldn't report anything negative about Kamala Harris. Okay. Oh, they're getting too cutesy with their objective reporting. We don't want that. Reporters and journalists should actually serve as operatives for the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris's campaign. And now all of a sudden, he's totally pretending like he didn't say that. And after Kamala Harris loses the election, he has the audacity to pretend like no one else was talking about all of these critiques. It's just, we were talking about it and we were getting a lot of crap for it from people like Joe Scarborough.
Joe Scarborough and the Morning Joe team have come under fire for allegedly acting as de facto moderators for the Democratic Party, placing partisan loyalty above balanced journalism throughout the campaign. Critics argue that the show downplayed, or outright ignored, politically inconvenient issues like inflation and economic strain directly affecting everyday Americans. By skirting these concerns, Morning Joe is seen as having misled viewers, presenting a skewed narrative that favored Democratic interests over an honest evaluation of the challenges facing voters. According to these critics, this approach undermines the credibility of the show's political coverage and fails to reflect the realities shaping voter decisions.
All of a sudden, inflation is an issue. Who knew? Who knew that inflation? How are these people still employed? How do people tune into this show in the morning, every morning, to get their information? They have participated in the cover-up of Joe Biden's mental decline, which obviously put the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris at a massive disadvantage, considering the fact that Biden didn't drop out until July. After that, by Morning Joe, Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, after that disastrous debate performance from Joe Biden, continued trying to gaslight the American public about his mental decline. These people are not to be trusted. And I'm sorry, no cookies for Joe Scarborough, because all of a sudden he's willing to acknowledge all of the different things that Kamala Harris's campaign got wrong. You should have done that before the election. That type of pressure might have convinced her and her team to recalibrate. I get that the Democratic politicians don't want that. I get that they want us to pat them on the butt and tell them they're doing a good job. But that's a short-sighted thing.
In today's video, critics take aim at what they see as a troubling decline in journalistic integrity, arguing that objective reporting is being abandoned in favor of partisanship. Anna Kasparian specifically calls out Joe Scarborough for defending Kamala Harris, claiming he urged journalists to overlook her inconsistencies, such as her shifting stance on oil drilling, in order to shield her from scrutiny. According to Anna, Scarborough's position reflects a broader media trend of suppressing critical reporting when it threatens a favored political figure. She stresses the need for accountability and honest journalism, especially in the lead-up to the election, arguing that confronting these issues now could push the Democratic Party toward necessary introspection. For Anna, restoring integrity in the media is essential not only to inform voters but to preserve trust in democratic discourse. What did you think of today's video? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching.